Hey Colin, why do you claim me, Sydney, and Taylor to be aliens?
Because your eyes, they have a tendency to shift. Shifting being when they go from the regular pupil into a lizard-like reptilian, slit. And they do it quite often. All of them. And me being, I guess you say, of the nature that I am, kind of attracted these people to my own life by my own willing. But it's interesting to see the process of creation and how everything works and the truth of the universe. And truth is a really fascinating thing. But yeah, that's what I believe.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
What is God to you?
God is thought. Mind, body, and soul. Soul being God, God being thought. God the Father of thought. And then experience, which is the Son. And then spirit, which is, spirit. Yeah. But yeah, there's many ways to take it. Mind, body, and soul is the easiest to remember. And basically your soul is God, your mind is consciousness, which is also kind of ties in with God, but not quite. And then, your body, which is dense physical mass. Anyways. So, somehow the universe decided that this was going to happen to our race and we'd have to overcome it, and then we would achieve even greater consciousness than we started off with. And we started off pretty high on the scale. Like we're probably going to be able to see the full spectrum once we ascend to what I believe is 5th consciousness level is what we're supposed to get to. We're at 2nd right now, but everybody's starting to approach 3rd. Once we hit 3rd singularity, it's going to go up from there because we're just going to... That's how people are going to be. And we're going to, eventually get there and take back our planet and things like this, but it's all in due time. Anyways, so one theory is there was a big fight that broke out between the Martians and Lumerians, and the Martians, created some crazy machine. It's called, what was the word? It's a Merkaba. It's a Merkaba generator. They tried to simulate a fake Merkaba, which is like a mix of body, spirit, soul, and energy, and all put together in the the Hebrew sign. That's what a Merkaba looks like, and you can actually conjure it physically if you focus. That's what a Merkaba is. But it's kind of been a while since I made one, because that's the Merkaba that destroyed Mars. You can see it as the face of Mars. It's a face and a pyramid. That's what a Merkaba looks like. We also found one on Atlantis recently. There's pictures. If you look it up on Google, they're there. And it looks just like the face on Mars, kind of flipped around a little bit, and I think one of the things are a little photoshopped in, but it might be preserved better than the one on Mars too. So, but it's basically the same thing. There's one in Egypt too, but theirs was a little bit different. Anyways, it's all part of the plan. Because Thoth had a plan for Earth to get us back to consciousness. This was all planned out for us. And now that we're born here, right at the precision of the equinox when it's supposed to happen, right when the Mayan calendar ends, that's kind of a big deal. The life we're living right now is a huge deal, and everything you do right now is going to count towards the future.
Is God real?
Yes.
How does he affect us?
He affects everything.
In what way?
It's hard to explain, but everything we do in life, all the choices we make, all the decisions we have, everything affects us, and us affecting the universe, and that relationship is God in the relative universe. But the universe isn't as we know it. We can only see with our eyes the spectrum of light, but there's an entire spectrum of frequencies that exist in the relative universe, but we can only see this much of it with our eyes. But we exist in all of it. So, by that theory, we have down here the relative universe, and above it we have what I would call God. In other words, the non-relative universe, where there is no There's no dense physical reality. It's just joy and love. It's love, basically. So you have the relative universe and you have love. In the relative universe there's two forces, love and fear. Everybody's born with two emotions, love or fear. You could choose to live by love or you can choose to live by fear. And like our society right now on planet Earth and all this relative universe, which is the entire universe, by the way. The relative universe is the entire universe. Like, we're talking, we're that much of it. And we're a tiny speck. But on our planet, what's interesting is the entire concept of needing and wanting things, the entire structure of needs and wants are skewed, because you don't ever need anything. You have everything. And you should give what you have, because the magnetics of the universe work like that. We're magnetic, and magnetism plays a large role into all of this. When you give what you have, you attract, positive energy to, both of your magnetic poles in your body. As hard as that is to sound. Like, the Earth has magnetic poles, people have magnetic poles. I don't know about animals, but I'm sure they do too. All living things usually do. All living things that have consciousness, that is. Not to say dogs and things like that don't have some degree of that, but not quite the same as humans. They're not quite as advanced as us. They're on a lower level of consciousness. We're on a higher level of consciousness, but we used to be on a very, very high level of consciousness before we fell and lost our memories. But now, as the Mayan calendar ended, and the precision of the equinox has gone back to our stage of awakening, December 21st, 2012, people are starting to wake up and realize this. So we're starting to enter in the golden age, where the government will be abolished, the world might have a catastrophe, and most likely, either a lot of people are going to die, or a lot of people are going to band together and save everything. Because mass consciousness is a force in the universe. It's such a powerful force. If we used our mass consciousness together as 6 billion little magnets, or 10 billion now, I don't know how many of us are here, 10 billion little magnets might create a force large enough to fix whatever natural disaster could happen. And a lot of people underestimate mass consciousness and group consciousness. But really, it's a very productive force.
Let's go back on this. You said we fell, we lost our minds.
Yeah, not our minds, but our consciousness.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so 26,000 years ago, we were a lot different than we are now. We lived on, Atlantis. But the thing about Atlantis is, okay, this goes back even farther. Let's go back to Lemuria, before Atlantis. Lemuria was when society, our species first started evolving on this planet. It evolved very well. We were at a very high level of consciousness. We were doing very good for ourselves. And then some turbulent times happened. So, after the fall of Lemuria, because the Earth decided to do a pole shift or some sort of other natural disaster that caused a lot of change in the landscape of the Earth, which it does from time to time because the Earth grows and changes as well. It's a life form in its own sort of way. We settled on a new place called Atlantis. Now, the Nicalls, which are ascended masters essentially, had, the third eye that we lost. they were quite high in consciousness. And then they actually talked to beings of true consciousness, like Thoth, the priest king of Atlantis, which was a consciousness level of 6. We're at 2 right now, so he's quite a bit above us. And then he had some helpers. I can't remember their names, but the most important one is Thoth, because he's the one who kind of helped us in the past, and now he was transferred into somebody, but source on that is spiritscience.com. It's awesome. And it's on YouTube too. You just search up Spirit Science. There's like 20 volumes. They really tell like a pretty decent story of what happened. the whole massive consciousness thing is really controversial though, because I'm going to explain the full story from that, and then I'm going to say there's a couple theories of how we lost our consciousness, not just the one they say in spirit science, which I'm not quite sure about, but we'll find out later. Anyways, so when they created Atlantis, they created these rifts, magnetic rifts, to pull life in from all the sinking islands of Lemuria, so everybody could teleport there. So when they created these rifts and the calls on the new island of Atlantis, because they saw it coming, they knew Lemuria was going to be destroyed. There was going to be a new land that formed. So they prepared for this, obviously. We lost our perception of time, space continuum, like seeing into it, just from consciousness. We lost that when we fell. When we fell, by the way, we fell to the very bottom. We didn't even go like down to here or something. Like, we fell way down. We had to climb our way all the way back up, and only do it in 13,000 years. And we're getting pretty close. As more people wake up, and mass consciousness just flips everybody's switch, and it's like, boom, the whole planet becomes Ascended Masters. But that's not going to happen for a while. Anyways, back to the story. So they created these rifts, and I believe there was 10 rifts or 12. No, there was 12. Right, it was 13. Yeah, 13 because you have 13 chakra points, right? Or is it 14? I have no idea, Brandon.
I would have no idea.
Anyways, they created a certain number of rifts, and most of them were filled with Lemurians, but 2 were left open for new life. And one was Jewish people, Hebrews, and the other was filled by Martians, which are a very male-dominant race that cut themselves off from God a very long time ago. Some people say they pulled in reptilians. I don't know what they look like. They were from Mars anyways. And they screwed up big time. They forsaken, the source energy from them. And they didn't choose to fall from consciousness. Like, they chose to cut themselves off from consciousness completely. Which in the end doomed them, because it's very foolish to do that. And there's no point in doing that either. It's a big waste of time. Anyways, they did that. And they came here and they were basically like, they operated they had long lifespans, but they didn't operate on a certain conscious level. They were very old men, basically. So they're like the 70-year-old guys, and then the Jewish people are actually from our future. Some call them Palladians. I don't know, they're Jewish, they're Hebrew, they come from our future. That's where they started coming from. Because if you actually look into the Hebrew religion, it has nothing to do with Christianity or anything. It's totally way out there. Because that's our future religion, which is actually ties back into what actual God is. So if you look at it, it's probably the most honest out of all the religions, but they're all sort of skewed in a way, even the one from the future. Anyways, in the future, it wasn't in our reality. You have to remember, they pulled it from a different dimension, where that's how people evolved. So it was completely different than ours. Anyways, it pulled them in, and it pulled the other guys in. And the Martians, there was very few of them, but they were like old men. And the Lemurians, you could say, were like operated on a conscious level of that time, before the fall, of 14-year-old girls. So you had all these old guys with a bunch of people who thought like 14-year-old girls, or technically that consciousness level of purity and innocence. Versus these old guys who've lived forever and have these terrible satanic, as you would call them in our sense of the term, bad lives. But it's just simply choice. I'm just using that as relative terms so people understand. Anyways, those guys were there. And they started controlling the Lemurians because they were a lot smarter. Oddly enough. And Lemurians, they were a female race. They don't really want conflict, so they didn't kill them outright or anything like that. They didn't really advocates of violence. They were pretty innocent. So they started hanging around, and eventually they started controlling all the Lemurians, and they got very high up. And of course the Nicals at that time were the leaders, and Thoth was in power, but there was a meteor that was going to hit, and the Martians wanted to blow it up using their technology, because they had highly advanced technology that we didn't have. Because we were very high consciousness, we were very low technology. So anyways, we had good technology, but it just wasn't what the Martians was. So we collaborated and stuff, and they made this nice city and everything. Atlantis was beautiful. It's awesome. Anyways, nothing like we have now. Nothing. Anyways, so what the Martians wanted to do is to blow it out of the Earth. But the Nicals actually foresaw that they needed to let this meteorite hit. This was important. This was an important event. So the Nicals are like, nope, nope, we can't do it. And the Lemurians, obviously outnumbering the Martians, eventually got them to be like, no, you guys cannot blow it up. This needs to hit us. This is going to happen. It's supposed to happen. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it happened. And so some people died. Mostly Lemurians. A few Martians died too. Actually, I think it was a Martian city got wiped out. Like a small chunk of land after the meteor hit fell off. So obviously they were pissed at us. Even though we didn't really do anything wrong and vastly outnumbered them and were nice to them the whole time. They're just assholes. Basically, so the Martians eventually controlled society, and now they reside in like the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. That's the ancient descendants go way back to the first Martians that came here. That's what I think. And, you know, Martians, reptilians, same difference. Anyways, so now we're approaching the fall of consciousness because there's a lot of fighting amongst the Atlanteans and the Martians, and you know, the Hebrews are trying to keep everybody under control, and they were kind of used as messengers between the Nakals and the Lemurians. Nakals being very ascended masters. So anyways, there was a huge fight.